Hi, this is Tutor Buxton. Welcome to Construction Quantity Surveying channel, where we get to learn construction skills, especially quantity surveying skills, those which are marketable, those that are to the current in regard to how the advancement in technology is taking place in the world. This is an international channel basing on standard methods of measurements for our measurements and taking off, and as well other regions, the rules for other regions, including the new rules of measurements and so on. For this channel, we've been doing our work sequentially, right from the introduction where we got to do the rules. We get to understand the theoretical rules which are applicable in construction, in estimation, and quantity surveying as well. So we've been doing so based on the plan which was given that we discussed at the onset of this channel. For that matter, it has been building on top of what we gather each and every day until we get to a more complex drawings. Today I would like us to learn about what we call foundation walling. This follows our successful coverage in the items that we had covered in our previous sessions, and those items, as we had done them, they are also ticked in that given list. So all the items that are listed there are items that have been covered successfully. If you get for those that are catching us for the first time, kindly these videos for all the items that are already ticked, including the theoretical rules, are covered under the previous videos. If at all you need to catch up with what we are doing today, because definitely for you to have a good background, this channel teaches you the whole of it, right from the introduction of what quantity surveying is, then setting foot into now the theoretical concepts, the rules, standard methods of measurements have been fully covered from this channel. So you are looking for a course, you are looking to cover this quantity surveying as a channel, this is the right channel. As a course, that is, this is the right channel. You just need to follow from the first video onwards. By the moment you reach where we are, you shall have been very competent in terms of what you are covering. So then you need not to worry in terms of you getting us for the first time in this bit. Just need to follow this and later on try to follow from the beginning, because we are building on the concepts, we are building on the rules and the guidelines, right, using the examples in terms of what's available. That said, kindly before we start our first item of presentation, I would urge you that please make a subscription so that whenever these videos come along, you don't miss any of them. I want to thank the returning viewers. Thank you very much, because you are the ones that keep this channel moving. So thank you and welcome to the session under foundation walling. As usual in this channel, we tend to show these items in regard to the typical items that are available in terms of the real-time construction and also the images of construction sites that are ongoing. In this manner, you get to understand exactly what I'm presenting. You are able to put it into perspective in a way that is easier for you to even understand. Foundation walling is the walling that folds anything beneath the substructure slab. So anything below the slab is what we refer to as the foundation walling. And therefore, for you to measure it, then it means it's going to be covered under what we call the substructures. Of course, I just have to emphasize that substructures mean anything that is below the finished floor level. Okay. So of course, from this drawing, I'll just remind you that from where my cursor is, that is the bit that we refer to as the original ground level. And of course, now the slab is always elevated above the original ground level to some level. Okay. So the point where we have the arrow projecting the substructure walling is above the ground level. So anything at that point downwards up to the top of the foundation footing, that is where we have the substructure walling. So in this case, once you have understood the concept or the scope of what the foundation walling is, and then you can also see from this side, this is just before the backfilling. So before you backfill fully and also make the filling of hardcore, and as well try to now put up the slab, you build what you call the foundation wall. These are structural elements, so in most cases made of natural stones. Okay, it's made of natural stones that are, the strength is strong enough to support the load, that is the whole building. And of course it has what you call the foundation footing. So you are able to see that you have what you call the walling. Of course, this type of the foundation walling, it always have as well the internal walls and so on. For our presentations here, we've been using a plan, and that plan is one that it's been simply designed. It has got a few challenges, including the recesses, some of which when we should we explain properly and you understand, then you are able to capture any other building regardless of the shape. And for that reason, you are able to see it has got what we call the recesses, and then it also has one external walling that is going all through, and of course the internal walls as well. So from this point, this is what we've been covering all along. And of course we've done the center line. Okay, center line, now the external center line, we've done so. So for those who are getting us for the first time, I would reiterate that we have done all the items. For instance, what I'm talking about in terms of the center line. In this particular presentation, center line was calculated. So you just need to remind yourself of the same and see how we got to arrive to it. You can compare from the plan and also from what was done. So that was what was calculated as the center line, so that you just have it into perspective, and of course the internal lengths and so on. So once you've seen that, of course the pause is just for you to appreciate that how we calculated the center line. If you need it further, kindly just go to the previous sessions and you will find it. Just according to the heading, just scroll through and you'll find where we got the center line. For this for the foundation wall, it's also very important to note that what we are using here is we rely heavily on the standard methods of measurements for the rules. These rules give us the units in which we should measure these items. And in my understanding, it's important that when you know the rule, then it's easier for you to get the dimensions which you are looking for to make an estimate or a taking off, whichever way you'd like to refer to it. That is why I emphasized and took quite a number of sessions to explain properly these rules, where they are found in the standard methods of measurements, okay, and then the unit in which the specific items are measured, okay, because it should be that in that manner, not the other way around. You shouldn't get the plan is when you go the reverse way, but rather you should know the basic, you know the rules, and then you now get to the plan and know what exactly you are interpreting for that matter. In that order, it's easier for you to understand. So for the foundation walling, it's done in square meters. If you just see my summarized rules here at number 24, it's done in square meters. And for those who want to get references from the standard methods of measurements, go to section G, item 4, number A. You will get what it talks about, the walling. So it should be done in square meters, of course, using the items or the dimensions that you'd refer to as the mean length and an average height. There is an instance of talking about those particular items. Those are keywords. There is a meaning to it. Mean length would mean, for instance, for what I am presenting here, a wall is 200 wide. It can be, depending on which region of the world you are in. Maybe you are using a cavity wall, you are using just a single layer wall. It can be 150 millimeters, it can be 200 millimeters, or it can be half a brick wall, maybe it has a cavity, it has a brick facing, and so on. For all that, nevertheless, the rule still implies in that manner. The mean length would mean you try to get the length at the center of that particular walling, and then you'll subdivide it, whether it's on the external facing, whether it's in the internal facing, or it's just a single leaf wall. You do it at the center line. That is the mean length. Okay, and the reason is simple. When you get the area of this walling from the external, using the external length or the internal length, that area definitely is going to be less. The center line is cutting across between internal part and the external part, so it's an average of what you have, and that is the most accurate way and has been recommended even in our rules of estimation of the standard methods of measurements. The new rules of measurements talk about the same thing, that you do it in the mean length. Then average height is essential because you might find that your walling is built in a slanting manner. That said, for instance, when you look at this particular site, you will notice that, let me see if I can find it. You will notice that, for instance, this particular plan, it's slanting. Of course, you won't be having your final level of the slab slanting because you expect it to be on a stable ground, on a flat ground, or a flat level, so to say. In this case, you notice that you can have, for the ones that are on deeper side, the walls are going to be deeper, are going to be more than the ones that are to the higher side. Okay, in that case, you don't need to divide it into sections, but rather you can focus on getting an average of that of the heights of the walls, and then proceed with your estimation. So the focus is on you getting the accuracy of the wall and getting it in terms of the average height and the mean length. So to say, I would go straight into our estimation, into our working today, that is now for us to get now the area of the wall that we have for the plan we've been using all along. So we'll go straight to it and just make what we are doing now, and for the plan that we are using, so we go to the plan, that is the procedure, get to your plan. Okay, so once you've got to your plan, then you've understood the dimensions that you need. Once you've done so, and then you go straight. So this one we are talking about the foundation walling. So having presented what exactly we are required to have, or what we are expected to do, then measuring the foundation wall won't be a problem. So of course there are types of walls here. There is now the external foundation wall. External foundation walling will get the length. Okay, we'll try to get the length for the external foundation walling. So remember, I mentioned that for the excavations, strip footing, excavation, blinding, and the strip footing, the length that they use is 1. But then now when you get to walling, those dimensions are going to change, in the sense that walls are measured immediately on each other, in the sense that for the external wall, the internal wall is going to be immediately in contact with the external wall. But then for the excavations and the other items I've mentioned, you notice that if you've excavated the external wall, you've excavated the external strip, then for the internal strip you won't be excavating exactly up to immediately where the other wall of the external wall is going to run. So in this case we are going to adjust. Of course, center line remains the same, so length for external foundation walling is equals to the center line. Okay, and the center line as calculated before. So what that means, we just go straight to what we had done. Those who are new to the channel and getting us for the first time, we'll just refer to it, what we had calculated. It's the same plan, the same calculation, and you can as well refer to the dimensions which are provided here. You can see it's reflecting the same as what we have here. So that length, we got it to be 63.60 for the center line of the external walling. So once we have that, we just use that straight away so that we won't repeat it. The content is already in the previous videos, and I've also shown you there. You can just pause, make a writing when you're calculating on your own, and then proceed. So it's as simple as such. So this is 63.60. okay. So once you have that, then it means you already gotten your average length or the mean length. You call it the center line for the external wall. Then now the next task is going to be for you to get length for internal walls. Okay, we'll get the length for internal walls. In this case, it's also going to be easy, because from what we have, I'll just try to zoom in so that you are able to see it clearly. That particular length is going to be, when I told you that it's going to be in immediate, then you would imagine that it's coming this way. Okay, so that is the extent for this particular wall. Maybe I would prefer to stretch it downwards that way, and then I will make another line for this side, so that you see the extent to which we are stretching that particular line. The same applies to that. Okay, so it means for the scope of this particular length, the wall that we are talking about, if you haven't seen it properly, it's this wall. So this is internal wall 1. Okay, so this is the length that we are talking about here. Now what next? You've seen that it's 7.8, of course, because you can see the 200 is outside, and also another 200 is also to the outside. So it means just what is within that the external walls. So length for internal walls, wall 1 is 7.800. Okay, then we'll go and calculate wall 2. Just zoom out again, and then wall 2 is now this particular wall. So once you've understood that, I'll also just zoom it out, zoom it in, so that you are also able to see it properly. So you'd relate. This is 4.7. Of course, you can see another 200 to the bottom side. That is enough for the external wall. Another 200 to the top side for the external wall on the other part. And therefore, the wall, the length that we need is just within that particular point, and it's going to be 4.70. Okay, so once you understand the concept and you are able to interpret from your plan, then it should be a problem for you to get the length that you have. Okay, so that is 4.70. Okay, so we have that. We have the two lengths. Of course, I would expect that we add the two. We add them. We add what we already calculated. So 7.8 plus 4.70, that would be 12.5 for that for the summation. Okay, that will be 12.5. So just write it here. That will be 12.50. So whenever you notice that there is no proper arrangement, just make it good so that your work appears to be very, very orderly. Okay, can I have that? It's better now. Yes. So you have 12.50, and then you have the center line for the external walling to be 63.60. So from what we've done, it's as simple as that, because it's basically you interpreting what the extent in which those walls are going to be built. And of course, from what we can relate with the image, then it's straightforward that you get it as well as we have described. So once we have that, then it means what follows is for us to identify what the heights of that particular wall is going to be, because we need, for us to achieve the square meters, we need to get the lengths the length we've calculated, which is normally the bigger deal, and then we go to the height. The height of the foundation wall is what we get next, and then we are able to calculate now our area. Okay, so what we've just said is now height for the walls. Okay, so this is what we are moving to. Because this being a basic drawing, it means actually even in more complex drawings, I'll mention that what we are talking about in terms of substructures is considered as all provisional, meaning that it's subject to change once the implementation of the plan is being undertaken on site. So it means it can change at that particular point. Okay, therefore what you need to focus on are the basics. For instance, the length will remain the same unless otherwise. Okay, of course there are times that there's nothing you can do about variations on site. Maybe they want to increase the size of the building and so on, but relying on the plan that you have been presented with, then it's important that for the length, that will be obvious that you'll get the center line and you get the internal length. For the height, this is where you have to make an assumption. Okay, there is the detail of the footing. As usual, you have to refer to it for the details of what you have, the items 1, 2. Okay, actually most of the items you'll get it from the sections, the details that you are looking for. In this case, you'll notice that in most cases this particular height will be noted as determined on site. So maybe I present another set of drawing that is going to help us with what we are talking about. Let me just see. Okay, so you'll notice that this height, the height from let me say from below the blinding to just top, from to the soffit, or the level where we have the foundation, the slab, concrete slab bed, there will always be a denotation of D.S, meaning that it's determined on site. So it's never into finality. It's always subject to change at the time of implementation. So once you understand that, then it will always be reasonable for you to make an assumption in terms of the dimensions of the height to use. Okay, looking into this this is now a different design. Looking into it, you notice that you have what I was talking about in terms of the D.O.S, which simply implies that you will determine that particular height on site. But of course, you've not gone to site and you need to make an estimate. Therefore, you have to rely on something. You have to make an assumption based on something. Of course, having your assumptions is always informed by experience. That is one. Can also be informed by you asking the experienced guys if you not have the experience in terms of the average height to use. And of course, now the third reference that you'll use is from what I'm telling you, that in most cases you'll use 1.5 meters or 1500 millimeters. Of course, some structural engineers will design and denote that use a minimum of 1500. Okay, so if it's not denoted, then it's just obvious that you can use 1500 millimeters. Of course, that is now excavation. Okay, that is excavation. So though in this case you can notice that the 1500 is actually from the top of the footing to somewhere at the top of the ground floor slab. If you can just see that properly, it's in that order. You can notice that the 1500 here is denoted from top here to the top of the slab. Okay, so generally what I'm saying is that your wall, the wall height, is going to be based on assumption, guided by the assumption that normally the height for the average excavation that is assumed when you don't have details or you've not been told the exact dimensions is 1.5 meters. So you can decide to use the whole 1.5, or you can decide to adjust the 1.5. Maybe you assume that the whole excavation is 1.5, and then you do you deduct the foundation footing. Okay, so that is entirely based on your informed opinion and decision on how to go about the same. So if for the two items, for the one reference of 1.5 that I mentioned, you can decide to use the whole of it and there is no a single problem of the same. Okay, so you can decide to use that and move on with the rest of the items that you need to cover. Yeah, so we get back to what we've been referring to. So I was just trying to explain to you the basis in which you use to arrive to that particular item or a particular assumption of the height. So we are going to use assumed as 1.50 meters. So that's an assumed height, and of course I've tried to explain the basis in which you follow to arrive at having to assume that particular height. Well, the rule told us that we need to measure our wall in square meters, that is getting the length and also getting the height. We've already got both of them, and therefore the next item remaining is for us to enter the dimensions. So straight on we move and add what we need to add in entering our dimensions here. Let's see what that is coming to. So we have 63.6. Just need to add that, and what we have is 63.6. So let's see. Okay, all right, so we have 63.6. We have 63, yes, 63.6. Of course we'll stretch it to be better arranged, and then we also have the height to be 1.50. that is for the external part, external wall, and then the internal walls we added the two dimensions and we got it to be 12.50. Alternatively, you can just enter the dimensions as they are. You can enter one of them, the 7.8 times 1.5, and then 4.7 times 1.5, or you do them as one. You can add them, you can just enter them as they are. So there is never a rule that is restricting you on exactly how to enter those dimensions or those lengths. So that is normally at your liberty to decide. So we have that. As usual, the next step follows. We underline. You have to underline. That is signifying that you have two dimensions, and then after you've two dimensions, which means that the final product is going to be in square meters. So just underline this one properly. The two, you underline that, and then you underline that as well. Okay, so once you have that, then you normally do a bracketing. You do a bracketing, and then you do what we call the description. Okay, so once you have that, then you now do you do your description, and that is what comes here. Okay, so of course descriptions, as I've always been mentioning, they are always guided by the rule. What are those items that we need to include in your description? We are talking about item number 24, that is walling. So let me just zoom in so that you can also read what I'm referring to. So this is a summary of what I could get from the standard methods of measurements. So it's measured, mean girth, mean length, and the height. So we've talked about that. Stating thickness. So even if you are new to this course, you are new to this concept, there are those items that you won't miss out. They are the key items that you have to include. Okay, thickness. So what's the thickness of the wall that we're talking about? Classification, filling existing openings or skins of hollow walls. So that simply means where is that, which type of wall is it? Okay, that said, we'll go straight to the thickness. So it's 200 millimeters thick foundation walling. So for anybody, you've identified that it's in foundation, you've identified that it's 200 millimeters thick, then it means you already understand what you're talking about. You might decide to end it there if you don't have much information, but it would be advisable that you talk about in terms of what are now the mixes, how is it jointed, okay, or how is the wall built. So basically just describing in terms of how you arriving to that particular wall. So this is 200 millimeters thick foundation walling, okay. You can talk about the bedding and jointing, okay. You can use abbreviation C/S, which means cement, sand. You can talk about the mix. You can say, for instance, 1 to 3 mortar, okay. All right. So in that case, you identify the thickness. That is step 1. You've identified what type of walling is a foundation walling, okay. So you can as well talk about the type of foundation walling that you're talking about. So 200 millimeters thick foundation, maybe you say masonry, or you talk about natural stone walling, natural stone foundation walling, bedded, yeah, just a matter of describing that properly, bedded and jointed, in cement sand. The C/S means cement sand mix 1 to 3 mortar. So we've talked about the type of material that has been used, the thickness of that walling, where it's found, and how it has been built. That's a proper description, okay. You just simply talk about those items which we've mentioned there. And of course, because we are not doing we're just taking off, we're just showing the dimensions and how we come to that, then it's not we are not going to the squaring part. That's going to be building on the subsequent sessions that we are going now to get those specific quantities. And of course, ultimately we'll now be making up the proper bills of quantities at the end of the day. That said, there are those items which are associated with the foundation walling. So those are the ones that I would also like to capture within this session, and then we just call it done, and then we await for the next session. And those items that I'm talking about, let's just get to our checklist, or the taking off list, and see which ones we've covered and which ones are remaining. So we talked about those ones we covered yesterday, the formwork, and then we've done foundation substructure walling. We like to talk about bonding, and then we go to DPC, okay. Bonding simply means how you will join the two walls together, walls that are joining to one another, okay. The reason this is essential, it's because you as a quantity surveyor, you'll need not to miss anything that is cost related in terms of in the building. Therefore, you need to make sure that any item that is going to attract cost is taken into consideration. Building the wall overall is going to have a similar rate. However, at the jointing now, what we call the bonding of that particular wall, you will notice that there is going to be a more labor input than the rest of the walls that are simply laid on top of each other in a particular manner. In this point, those walls, they are going to be combined in a more special way in terms of the letting some stones protrude beyond the normal level, and so on, so that they are strongly bonded together. So that is what we are talking about when you talk about the bonding. So bonding, as usual, our reference is to the rules, because we don't want to make anything that is out of the rule. Talk about the rule at item number 25. If you go to section G15 of the standard methods of measurement, then you notice that it should be measured in linear meters. So that is what we do. Then for the linear meters that we're talking about, how do you arrive to it? Okay. So the way in which you arrive to that linear meter, you just simply get the height, because for instance, in reference to our plan, those particular walls, for instance, our wall 1, it's going to be bonded at, this is part 1, and then this is part 2. So that said, it means all that height in which they are bonding, that is of what is of essence to you. So you need just to get those particular heights, and then you multiply by the number of times they occur. For instance, here we have point 1, there is going to be bonding. Part 2, there is going to be bonding. Part 3, there is going to be bonding. And then part 4, there is going to be bonding. So we've talked about the 3 points, I mean the 4 points. So you simply get the height. So our height is equivalent to what we had calculated, or what we had assumed for the wall. Okay, so here we are talking about bonding. So it's measured in linear meters, and then assumed length or assumed height was 1.5, and I've just explained why we arrived to that, and therefore that is what we are going to be using. So it's 1.5 meters. So that means we go straight and add what we need to add in for our dimension, and that is going to be 1.50. Okay, let me just stretch that properly that way. So we have that 1.5, and of course, as usual, you multiply by the number of times. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and what we've just counted. So we'll multiply by 4 points. 4 points in which what we are calling bonding is going to be done. So that is 4. Okay, and as usual, you go ahead and underline properly what you have done. Okay, and then as well, you make a description. You bracket. So once you've bracketed, then you go ahead and describe. Okay, so normally when you are describing, then there are those items which you don't need, you shouldn't miss, and they include you stating what type of wall you are bonding to which one. Okay, so bond 200 millimeters thick natural stone walling to 200 millimeters thick natural stone walling. So it's basically as simple as such. Get the points in which they are bonded, and then you get that height or the length, whichever way you'd refer to it, and then how many times they are appearing, or depending on the type of wall. So if at all one was maybe machine cut stones or brick, then talk about brick being bonded to natural stone, then and vice versa. If number 2 was a different type of wall, talk about that. So you simply describe type of wall that are being bonded to which type of walling. Then lastly, I would move to what we call the DPC. So that is what we are covering very last. So we'll go to what we call DPC. For the new members of this channel, DPC, we have defined what it means. I'll reiterate the same. DPC simply means dam proof course that is laid on top of the foundation wall. If you go to what we are presenting here, then you will notice this is the point where we have the DPC. So I just want to highlight it as well, that you can see where that DPC is being placed. So let's just let me just highlight for you that as well. So DPC, it's going to be placed in this particular point right on top of the wall, so that rising damp along the wall does not go straight up to affect the rest of the wall upwards, okay, through capillary action. So that said, then you understand what it does, and therefore you need to also to understand how to estimate for that as a quantity surveyor. Very essential. So once we have that properly explained, then we go straight to how to get to that dimension. And then this is how we do that. It's measured in linear meters. If you refer to, should you just get back to our rules, then you will notice DPC, it's somewhere here, damp proof course, section number G97A. In our standard methods of measurements, you get that, and you need to estimate that in linear meters. Okay, so for the linear meters, what you do next, the length that we had used for the walls are the length that we are going to use here for the DPC. Okay, so length used is equivalent to wall lengths. Okay, so yeah, just in a plain explanation as such, that is what you do. So once you have that taken note of, then you go straight to what you have had calculated, and then you apply those particular dimensions. So for external wall, we had calculated it to be the center line, that was 63. Can as well refer to this point, we have it here. So 63.6, then 12.5. So those are the lengths that we are using. Therefore, we'll go straight to enter our dimensions in terms of what we have just taken note of for the dimensions. So we just add. Right, so for the external part, it's 63.60 because it's linear meters, and then for the other ones it's 12.5. Just confirm the same. Yeah, 12.5. So those are the lengths that we have for the DPC, and once you've properly taken note of that, the procedure is clear. I mean the sequence, whichever way you'd want to refer to it. So just underline that properly as such, and then you underline the next dimension bracket, and then you make your description. Okay, so the next description would be for you to describe what you are dealing with. Just put that here, and then we describe that particular. So when you're describing the DPC, you talk about the width and the type of material. So that is how you go about that. So for the width, it's going to be reflecting the width of what you have as the wall. So even if it's we are going to use more, you stick to that width, because the rule states that we need to measure them net. So we'll talk about 200 millimeters wide DPC. Yes, so damp proof, of course. So you can talk about the gauge, you can describe any other thing that you deem fit for that particular item. So up to that point, I want to appreciate you for watching. I want to say thank you so much for being part of this channel. For my new members, also thank you very much. Just before you leave, I'm sure that you've noted that it's worthwhile to be a member of this channel and subscribe to it, so that such videos that are quite in-depth do not shall not be missed out. So please subscribe before you leave, and I would urge you that you turn on the notification, because these videos are coming on daily basis, and as they come, you want to be right on toes to take note of the new items that we are learning. So thank you very much, have a great time till we meet again in our next session, where we are going to cover what we call now backfilling, just generally the fillings and so on. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Bye bye.